So if you haven't seen it, or in the comic book news, this is a big deal to me. Uh, Disney has did a phone call with Ike Perlmutter. Now, if you don't remember, which I still think was a little shady, if you go back in the '90s and you really look at how Ike Perlmutter acquired Marvel, originally Jim Shooter and his team were gathering together to acquire Marvel. And then somehow it happened. There was some stuff where he edged him out with a judge. It's a little weird. Now, Ike Perlmutter has not been poisoned the entire time. He's the reason why Marvel went to Disney, which then Disney, started the MCU. If maybe under Jim Shooter, we may have never gotten the MCU. I know people nowadays are probably like, well, we don't need the MCU anymore, the way all the stuff that's been bellowed out. And for all the people that are like, no, it's been great. No, it hasn't. Phase 4 was a disaster. Now, we know part of that is with the Alonzo situation, not doing her job, from what I'm understanding, at least from the Disney side. Because she was supposed to be doing the one who handles the VFX, and she was worried about another movie. That's, what is, from what I understood from Disney's side. And I'm like, the proof is in the put. I mean, just look at MODOK and some of the She-Hulk and the CG that you did. That does say something, because the VFX were at least decent until Endgame. So, but she's saying it's because of a flag thing. So, we'll see how that pans out. I tend to look at the evidence, so I kind of leaning more on I think you weren't doing your job, and that's why they had an issue with you. And now you're redundancy in Disney's eyes. So, Ike is the reason why we stopped getting X-Men and Fantastic Four comics for all those years, which was because he was famously known for cost effectiveness. And I think he ran Toy Biz too, or something like that. I can't remember. I know he had something to do with that. And I know during the acquisition, he was to come on board, and I think he was supposed to be just something that came with it and was supposed to be like a lifer. Well, the problem is that Disney has been losing money. Their movies have not been doing well. They're none of them. And you had Marvel, which became the biggest movie brand in the world, and all time, just money making, generating machine. And now you have, during the pandemic, the movies weren't doing well, and people could use that. But at the same time, you had stuff like Fast and Furious, Godzilla, and things that were actually doing better than expected. You had $800 million movies during that time, and they were getting beaten out. Marvel, when Shang-Chi and stuff were getting beaten out, and Black Widow did really bad. And these things now, they could use that and say, well, this is because of this. Fine. Well, that didn't make total sense because of everything else that was coming out that were also considered big hits, like James Bond and stuff. But okay, maybe, right? But they've never recovered from it, which tells me that no, this has been a sinking thing for a while. It's just that timing, you used it partially for that. Now, under him, Ike Perlmutter, there was also the Netflix shows, which to me, the Netflix shows are better than any of the recent Disney Plus stuff that Kevin Feige has done. There was also, what was that show? Runaways, Cloak and Dagger. I ran into a lot of people who really enjoyed those shows. I didn't get a chance to actually watch Runaways all the way through yet. I liked what I saw. I just never got. I had to stop. I had other life stuff, so it happens. I'll get to it eventually, like I do a lot of shows. But what ends up happening is that that's where he is now. The reason why he ended up getting into television, because originally he was in the movie stuff. Him and Kevin Feige had a fallout, and I think what ended up happening, he was trying to get Kevin Feige fired, and right now they looked at Kevin Feige as he's the golden boy. Now, I used to think Kevin Feige and these things were his ideas and his stuff, but in his vision as what the MCU was. Now, the problem is, as I've started to pay attention, I'm hearing directors talk about how, the one that did She-Hulk, how they bullied him, air quotes. And then I'm starting to hear that other people started, telling him, no, this is what it's going to be, Kevin. And he kind of just gave in. So now I'm wondering if it's more of a guy who's able to surround himself with people with good ideas. And then he can kind of pick what the good idea is. But he also gives in very quickly from what I've understood, and if you don't believe me, go look it up, because there's always someone who goes, oh, you're lying. Well, go look it up. The director of She-Hulk just as prime example, most recent example I could think of, like openly admitted that she bullied him to put something in there and like was kind of telling him what to do. Um, so that's just, and if that's one example, that means there's probably other examples. But now with Marvel Entertainment is getting rolled into one entity because it's like, well, why do you need it to be separate entities? Kind of similar to how DC Comics rolled into just DC. So it looks like a lot of our there are two big comic companies that have the big overheads, that have the corporations that run them, are trying to roll everything in and to isolate everything in. So what do I think this means? Now that he's gone, which I was like, this guy done some deals. I mean, he made a good $1 billion deal that, did it. And it's not like this guy didn't do anything good. It's just that probably more recently he hasn't. And I know he's very cheap because I think the fight was over Doctor Strange and how much it cost. So he is known to be cheap. But I think the biggest reason why Disney got rid of him was because we tried to pull the coup. When he tried to, get his friend on the board of directors and was trying to shake everything up. And I think that happened like last year, where they were all of a sudden trying to like do all these things and power plays and stuff like that to have more control, and it didn't work. And I think Bob Iger has came back in, and he's like, because when he said, oh, the movies and stuff cost too much to make, I think he scorched earth. And he's like, you know what? You've been a problem. Kevin Feige's our boy, because Bob Iger's the one who fought and overturned to make sure Kevin Feige stayed. And I think he got to the point where he was like, you messed with our boy. We're finally going to get you bye-bye. So they may keep Marvel around. I think if they do, because Marvel's producing like 80 comics a month or more, sometimes more. Now, I turn around and I haven't been talking about comics as much lately just because I haven't wanted to dive fully into the world yet, because there's also comic book reviews and things I want to do, which will be happening very soon. I'm going to be getting back in the groove, but I'm also doing stuff with my place and everything. So lots going on, and job switches and all this stuff. Lots been happening. So what it comes down to is now there's two routes that they could probably take that I can think of. They could think of more. They could outsource Marvel and pay someone the licensing thing to produce the comics and have a certain type of deal where, they'll be like, okay, you have to produce these comics and do that. And maybe turn them into IP farms, because Marvel doesn't make them, as a comic book, doesn't make them enough money for them to sniff at. Let's say Marvel brings in $2 million a year. Let's just say. Matter of fact, no, even better. Let's say, and this is completely false, but let's say Marvel 1 year brings in $4 million. On the grand scheme of things, that ain't bringing in jack. The movies alone bring in hundreds of millions. Their parks bring in more. Every other Disney thing brings in more. And the fact that this guy did a bonehead thing that had nothing to do with Marvel, per se, because Fox didn't want to play ball, that he was like, well, we're not going to promote the X-Men and we're not going to promote the Fantastic Four. That was completely stupid. Marvel's top bangers, because a lot of people don't realize that Marvel actually has things that can go toe-to-toe with DC. They think, oh, well, it's the Trinity, it's Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, and then everything Marvel. Not exactly. It's actually Spider-Man, Batman, Superman, and Avengers. But their big products when it comes to Marvel that are sellers is Spider-Man, X-Men, Wolverine, which Fantastic Four, and then the Avengers, and you have a little bit of breakdown with Avengers. Like, for example, Hulk. Hulk is usually in the top 10. I mean, there was a stint where Immortal Hulk was actually beating Batman sales. So a lot of people don't like to always bring Hulk into the conversation. And Hulk is there. Hulk at any given point can be one of their most popular characters around. So he's always should be in the conversation. But they have a few characters that really stand out. And like I said, Spider-Man is their main, but X-Men is a huge one. So him doing that was petty and stupid, and he was doing personal business moves versus this. So I think what's going to happen with Disney as a whole is that they're getting rid of redundancies, and they're going back. And perlmutter is an example of what they're doing as a whole. Now, does this mean everything will be fixed? Maybe not. I think they're going to produce less comics. I think they're going to go from 80 back down to maybe like 50 or something for some cost effectiveness. If they want to do some of the comics, maybe they could put some on their digital platform. But I do feel like, as a whole, this is an example of Disney, and they're cutting everything down. Like, I think what's going to happen is that they're going to slow their roll a little bit and hopefully produce better products than what they have been. But we will see. And because there are way more layoffs and things coming, and we already know Alonzo, she's going after them. And I wouldn't be shocked if some more people want to go after them for what they've done. But they got to save the business. And when it comes to saving the business, all the upper heads, they cut out everybody else. So tell me what you think with this Ike Perlmutter thing, now that I think it's all under Kevin Feige. I'm trying to remember the dude's name. Buckley. I can't remember his first name. But Buckley was also the guy who was running Marvel, and now he answers to Kevin Feige, and I think he runs the Marvel comic book brand now. And I'm curious to see what they do, because outside of Immortal Hulk and the Venom stuff, which would be more of a Sony thing, I can't think of too many epic stories coming out of Marvel that would be worth the IP thing. Because a lot of the stuff that they're doing right now, which they're taking it from an era that a lot of people, whether they want to admit it or not, a lot of people did not like. Which was when they did the diversity thing. And the funny thing is, people are like, oh, it's because you don't want to see this. Well, it's more like, for example, Falcon becoming Captain America, it's still a little weird for multiple reasons, but a big reason is Captain America is still around. So why is he taking up the mantle instead of being the Falcon? And the merchandise sales prove that the Falcon still sells more than Falcon Captain America. Just saying, people can appreciate a character for who they are. Like Miles Morales. I don't like him being called Spider-Man. But the reason being is, like the one cartoon show, he was called Kid Arachnid. I like him having his own identity. I think he's a great character. But when you ask people, hey, think of Spider-Man, most people are going to think of Peter Parker. It's the same thing with Jace Fox and Batman. It's like, when you ask someone who's Batman's secret identity, they're going to go Bruce Wayne. Give these, like, same with the Flash and stuff. I'm like, no, characters should have their unique name. Unless someone completely takes over the mantle and the other character goes away, there is no reason why you should have characters with the same name, but that's what they do. So, that's just me personally. I don't think that's cool. I'd rather have Miles have his own name and be his own character, as he's proven to be a very strong character. Just as an existence. Because Spider-Gwen is called Ghost Spider. She's not called Spider-Woman anymore. And I actually think that's great. Because now, when I think of Ghost Spider, I think of her. I don't think of Spider-Woman, Jessica Drew, or Arachne, or you know what I mean? So, we'll see what happens and what changes this may make. Maybe Marvel will take a step back and start to reorganize how they do to make themselves more. At the same time, right now, they're announcing events with no artist or team or writers. So we'll see with the shakeup. Just tell me what you think about these moves. Geek Protagonists, you stay safe, you stay healthy, you stay real.